everyone, it's Megan here from Meghan Makes Do, and today I'm going to show you how to add a button band, a double knit button band to a cardigan. So for this tutorial I am using my new Freya cardigan, and I haven't yet put on the double knitted button band, so I'm going to show you using this cardigan and also show you how to make buttonholes as well. So to start, we want to grab a very long circular needle. I'm not sure if this one's going to be long enough, so what I'm going to do is I have like little attachment pieces and make a super long cord. Okay, so since we're going to be going and picking up stitches all the way around from the bottom of one side of our cardigan, all the way around the neckline and back down to the other end of our cardigan, I want to have a super long circular needle. So I'm using the same size needle as I did to knit the cardigan. If you're finding that as you go it's kind of pulling or tugging or too loose, you can definitely adjust your needle size to fit the better tension for you. But I find that using the same size needle works well for me. And I'm just going to use this handy little attachment piece. I believe this one is from Clover. I'll put links in the description below to all the supplies I'm using. And we're just going to attach a super long cord to the one I already have on, just so that we know we won't lose any of our stitches, and it will definitely make it all the way around. Okay, so I have mega knitting needle right now. And then we're gonna start on the front right side of our cardigan, right down here at the edge of the ribbing. Okay, so to start, we're gonna head down here to the very bottom corner. And then we're going to, grab our yarn and pick up a stitch. Now the Superwash Merino is a very splitty yarn, so be careful when you're doing it that you don't accidentally catch one loose strand. Okay. And then we're going to pick up another one. And for this ribbing section down here, I'm going to try to pick up about the same amount of stitches as I have rows for this one. And then once I get to the main body of the pattern, I'm going to do about 4 pickups and then skip a row. So I'm going to work into the edge of just about every row going around, because I don't want my band to be too big and bulky, and I also don't want it to be too tight and be pulling. But we're just going to pick up stitches all the way along the edge. And the key here, you can kind of base off your own tension and what you prefer your button band to look like, but you want to make sure that you are picking up the same number of stitches on either side. That's going to be the most important. Okay, so we're getting into our main body section here. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we're going to skip 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we skip 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we're going to skip 1. And I'm just going in along the very edges here. Hopefully I'm picking them up right. If you accidentally twist your stitches, which I think I did, you can definitely change that out as you add your button band. But what I'm going to do is just continue picking up stitches all the way along both edges, like all the way around until I get back to the left hand side. So you're going to have quite a few stitches. That's why we have such a long circular needle. So continue to pick up stitches. I've put helpful little tips in the written pattern and on my blog. You just want to make sure that you have the same amount of stitches up one side as you do the other side. So go ahead and continue to pick up stitches and just make sure that you're skipping every 5th row as you go. Okay, so I have picked up my stitches all the way around the whole entire edge of the front of my cardigan, and I've cut off the yarn and I've left long tails for seaming on either end. And then we're going to want to kind of pull on this side that we're going to end with. We're going to start at the end that we first started picking up stitches with, so the bottom right side of the front of the cardigan. And along this side, you're going to want to mark your buttonholes. So depending on what size you're making, it's going to be a little bit different for this cardigan, or if you're just wanting to learn this method to use on another cardigan, follow whatever instructions there are in your pattern. You can find the detailed written instructions for free on my blog for this one, or as a PDF version in my shop. But basically, we're going to mark where our buttonholes are. So each buttonhole is going to take up 3 picked up stitches. So I've placed a stitch marker just before those 3 stitches and just after those 3 stitches, so I know where to stop and start my buttonholes. And I've just marked them all the way along this edge. Okay, but we're going to start on this side. Okay, so I have my stitches now on my needle here. On this end of the needle, and in order to start our button band, we want to cast on our button band stitches, and then we're going to be kind of working like this, going all the way up and around. So I prefer to do an Italian cast on for these stitches. So I have my tail end over here and my working end here. And I kind of just hold both ends in my hand like this, kind of like how we would do a long tail cast on. And I'm just going to kind of drape the yarn like over my needle like this and hold on to it. And we're going to be doing 2 different techniques. One's going to be for a knit cast on and one's going to be for the purl. So for the knit, we're going to take our needle and go over and then under that front piece of yarn, and then over and under the back piece of yarn, and bring it up. Okay, so it just kind of is a twist right there. So these are not going to be like tightly stuck onto your needle. They're going to be a little bit loose, so you've got to make sure that you can hold them in place. So that is 2 stitches cast on. And then we're going to take our needle and go under both, come up on top of that front piece of yarn and pull it around. Just like that. Okay, then we're going to do the first one again. So under the first strand, over and under the second, bring it around. And then we're going to go under both, on top of that front strand, and bring it around. Okay, and then we're just going to repeat that, going back and forth between those 2. Until we have our desired number of stitches on our needle. And for this button band, we're going to have an odd number. We want to have 13 stitches. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. Okay, and then we kind of want to keep a hold of that last stitch, because again, it's just kind of twisted around the needle. It's not going to be super tight. Okay, and then we're going to kind of turn. Okay, turn our work this way. Oops. So here's my working yarn, and I'm going to bring this tail end just across here and kind of hold it in place while I work. Okay, so this first row is going to be just a little bit finicky because our stitches are not fully connected yet. They're just kind of, the yarn is just twisted around. Okay, so what we're going to be doing is, since this is a double knit, we're going to be knitting half the stitches and slipping half the stitches. Okay, so for our first stitch, we're going to knit. And again, it's going to get kind of loose here. Move my working yarn to this side. So we're going to knit the first stitch. Then we're going to bring our yarn in front and we're going to slip the next one purlwise. Then we're going to knit the next one. Bring yarn in front, slip purlwise. So we knit and slip with yarn in front purlwise. And we just do that until we have one stitch left from where our initial cast on, Italian cast on stitches are. So your last Italian cast on stitch, leave on your needle. Okay, so I've gotten to this last one. It's going to be a knit stitch. We want to bring it down a little bit. And what we're going to do is we're going to knit this one plus our first picked up stitch along the edge of our cardigan. We're going to knit those two stitches together through the back. Okay. And again, you can kind of pull that end just to make it tighter. So that's our first row done. And our whole the whole band, when you do double knit, is just 2 rows repeated. So for our second row, we're going to carefully turn. And then we're just going to do the same kind of technique, but we're going to be starting with a slipped stitch this time. So my yarn is already in the front. We're going to slip the first stitch, and then we're going to repeat the process. So knit one, bring your yarn in front, slip one purlwise, knit one, bring your yarn in front, slip one purlwise, knit, bring yarn in front, slip one purlwise, knit, bring your yarn in front, slip one purlwise, and repeat this all the way to the end. We're going to be ending with a slipped stitch. Whoops. Get these back on my needle. Okay, I'm just going to slip this last stitch and then turn. And then we just repeat the process again. So we're going to do the same thing that we did for row 1. So we start with a knit stitch, bring our yarn in front, slip one purlwise, and repeat. And again, ending with one stitch left before we get to the edge of our cardigan. Okay, so we're down to our last stitch. And again, we're gonna knit that one and our next picked up stitch. And we're gonna knit those together through the back. And then turn and repeat row 2. So slip the first one with yarn in front and then knit, bring your yarn in front again, slip one purlwise, so you'll always be knitting one, slipping one. And what this is doing is it's making basically a tube. So we're knitting half the stitches in the first row and half the stitches in the second row. Okay, so I'm just going to continue repeating rows 1 and 2 until I have gotten to my first stitch marker. And then I will meet you back here and I will show you how to make a buttonhole. Okay, so I am knitting through these 2 stitches, knitting them together through the back. And now I've reached my first stitch marker. Okay, so I can take that stitch marker away. I'm going to turn, we're going to do a row 2 repeat. So just as before, we knit one, slip one, all the way to the end of the row. Okay, so now this next row, we want to start our buttonholes. So we know that every time we're doing a row 1, we would eventually pick up one of these stitches, right? We would knit that together with our last stitch. So we're going to be working half of our button band here and leaving the other ones on our needle until we've gotten 3, we would have gotten 3 of these picked up. So we're going to work up this right hand side of our button band for the buttonhole, and then we'll go back and we'll work up the left hand side. So just as we did before, same kind of stitches, we're just going to be doing a smaller amount. So since I have 13 on, I'm going to be doing 7 stitches for the right hand side and 6 for the left. So just as we did before, we knit the first stitch, bring our yarn in front, slip the next, knit again, slip with yarn in front, that's 4, so 5, 6, and 7. Okay, so that's 1 row run repeat just for this side. Then we're going to turn our work and we're going to do a row 2 repeat just for these 7 stitches. So slip the first one, and then just continue knitting one, slipping one with yarn in front till we get to the end. Okay, turn again. We're going to do another row 1 repeat. This will be for this if you're kind of following along, the second stitch that we would pick up normally from the edge of our cardigan. So we want to do the same amount of rows that we will on the left hand side as well. So again, starting the same, knit one, slip one, knit one, slip one. Okay, turn again, another row 2 repeat. So slip our first stitch with yarn in front. Okay, so now we're going to do our last row 1 repeat here. So knit the first stitch, oops, and then we're going to stop after this row 1 repeat, and we'll do up the left hand side of our buttonhole. Okay, so here you can see we just have the right hand side of our buttonhole. If we stretch it out, you can see it's taller than our left. So now I'm just going to snip off, cut my yarn, leaving a tail for weaving in, okay? And then we're facing the same direction because we start off with a row 1 repeat down here. We want to start off with a row 1 repeat this way. So you can cut your yarn and then just bring it back around. And we're going to do these next repeats. This is the left-hand side of our buttonhole. Okay, so we're going to slip the first one, knit the next one, and repeat until we have 1 stitch left. Okay, so now we are going to do the knit 2 together with the last stitch from our button band and a stitch along the edge of our cardigan. Okay, and we turn, and we're going to slip the first stitch, knit the next, slip, knit, slip, and knit. Okay, turn, and we're just going to keep repeating these rows until we've gotten these 2 stitches before our next stitch marker have been worked up. This can be a little bit finicky just because our yarn is not going to be super sturdy since we had to join a new piece. But once we weave in all the ends, it'll be fine. Okay, here's the second stitch from our buttonhole. Then turn again. And again, same as before, slip the first one. And then knit 1, slip 1. Knit the last one. Okay, so now we're on our last repeat. Okay, we have 1 more stitch to pick up from our buttonhole. So we're going to slip that first stitch, knit the next, slip, knit, slip, and then knit this last picked up stitch for our buttonhole through the back loop. Knit those two together. We can take our stitch marker off, and now we're going to be joining the two sides of our buttonhole, doing a row 2 repeat. So we're going to turn, slip the first stitch, and then knit one, slip one with yarn in front, all the way across our row. So here is the left hand side, and then we immediately go into the right hand side of our buttonhole, just picking up those stitches again to join them back together. Okay, you can kind of pull on the tails of yarn here to kind of get them all tightened up again. And again, once we weave this in, it'll be nice and tight. But we've created one buttonhole here. I'm going to go ahead and do a row 1 repeat. So we're going to knit the first one, slip with yarn in front purlwise. This yarn is a bit splitty, so take your time with this. There's no need to rush it. And if you need to slow down the video at all, you can look at the settings on YouTube. You should be able to slow this down a bit more for you if you need to go through it again. Okay, and just as before, we're going to knit 2 together through the back, and then just keep repeating rows 1 and 2 all the way along here until we hit our next set of stitch markers, and then we just repeat those instructions how we did for this first buttonhole. So I'm going to pull my needles out a little bit, and then you can see here we have our buttonhole. We're going to have 2 tails for each buttonhole that we make, which is just fine. And it's a pretty stretchy buttonhole as well. So let me try to get my button that I'm going to be using so I can show you how it goes through. Because you can always test this out if you maybe are using slightly bigger buttons or smaller buttons. I'm using 7/8 inch buttons. So 7/8 of an inch, but you can see it does get very stretchy and will fit that button just fine, just with those 2 or 3 picked up stitches length. So it's a good idea to test out your button, make sure that it's going to fit through before you continue on, just in case you're using a different size or if you're just making your own button placard. So I'm going to continue going on until I've gotten through all of my buttonholes. So you can do the same as well. And then I will meet you back here and show you what to do next. Okay, so you can see here, I just finished up my last buttonhole. And so now I'm just going to keep repeating rows 1 and 2 as we did at the very beginning, just our regular all the way across, all the way around until I get to the bottom left corner of my cardigan. Okay, so I've just finished up my last row here. I've gotten all the way to the end of my cardigan, and I've come back and repeated a row 2. My yarn is over here, and now we're just going to use a tubular bind off to end the bottom of our button band. So cut a long piece of yarn. Here you want to have enough just to get this all sewn together, and then I'm going to use a blunt tapestry needle and thread my yarn onto that, and then we're just going to proceed with a tubular bind off. So to do that, we're going to take our needle and go in through the first stitch as if to knit. And then slide that off the needle. Then we're going to skip the next stitch and go into the following stitch as if to purl. Then we're going to go into that first stitch as if to purl as well. And we're going to slide that one off. Then we're going to go around the back of our work and come out in between the first and second stitch on our needle. Bring that around and then go into the second stitch as if to knit. And then we repeat. So this first stitch, we go in as if to knit. And slide it off. Skip the first stitch, go into the second stitch on the needle as if to purl. Go into the first stitch as if to purl. And slide that one off. Then we're going to come from the back and go in between the first and second stitch. And then we go into the second stitch as if to knit, bringing our yarn to the back. And then we just keep repeating that process until we've bound off all of our stitches. Okay, so now we've bound off all of our stitches. Make sure it's not too tight here. And then we might have a little gap here. So we can just take our needle and kind of attach the edge a little bit closer to the edge of our cardigan here. And if we want to go in through that loop at the end too, just to kind of tighten it up, we can do that as well. But using the tubular bind off method gives us a nice smooth edge here. Also gives us a little bit of extra stretch and a nice complete finish to our button band. So that's how we make a tubular button band with buttonholes. And all that's left to do is to weave in all of our ends and then attach our buttons along the left-hand side of our cardigan. So here you can see I have my buttonholes, and once I weave in those ends, they'll be almost seamless. And I can just attach buttons on the opposite side, and we'll be ready to wear our new cardigan. I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial, and I hope that you'll give this technique a try. If you're all ready to give it a try and you want to test out this technique, you can go ahead and find the Freya cardigan, which is right here. In the description below, you can find the free pattern on my blog, as well as a PDF version in my shop, or go ahead and get the complete kit from Lion Brand Yarn. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe.